This is Sitara and she's my vocalist. As we mentioned before, we're going to use a condenser mic, the same one we use for Ashley's acoustic guitar, the AKG 414. Condenser mics are great for vocals because they pick up all of those frequencies pretty evenly. The way that we've set up for Sitara is we've measured her height and tried to put the microphone as close in line with her mouth as possible. Remember that microphones don't have brains, they don't know where to look to capture the vocals. And if you point it in the wrong direction or if it's not perfectly in line with her mouth where she's singing, it'll catch more of the room. So it won't be a direct sound that you're capturing. So make sure that that's really accurate. I've also placed a pop filter about 3 inches away from the microphone. This serves 2 purposes. The first is it's going to capture the air from what are called plosives, or P's and B's, when she sings. If you say pop in front of your hand,
Pop, pop,
pop, you'll be able to feel the air rushing toward your hand, and that's exactly what rushes toward the microphone. It creates lots of low frequency buildup, and it also creates some distortion. The placement of 3 inches away is also useful for what's called proximity effect, or a buildup of low frequencies when a sound source is too close to a microphone. We're going to compare and contrast Sitara singing without a pop filter and really close, and the right way, standing a little bit further back and with a pop filter about 3 inches away from the mic. When you're setting up mics for a vocalist, it's really important to make sure that you avoid both plosives and proximity effect. Plosives are caused by air rushing at the microphone on P's and B's. You can practice in front of your hand to feel what that feels like. If you say pop, you can feel that there's actually air rushing toward your hand. And what happens in the microphone world is that actually causes lots of low end buildup and slight distortion on the mic. Proximity effect happens when you're too close to the microphone and it builds up low frequencies around the voice. This is really, really hard to deal with in post-production, and a good way to avoid this happening is to use a pop filter. We're going to demonstrate having Sitara sing through the verse with proximity effect and heavy plosives really close up to the mic without a pop filter, and then compare that to the correct setup with the pop filter. So here we go. All right, Sitara, if you want to just get nice and close to that mic, no pop filter. We're going to go in at the verse.
Okay.
All right.
I'm all alone, caught up in the winds of your cyclone, head over heels as the saying goes, but I'll come back to the ground if you say so.
Great. Now if we play that back, you can see already that it's distorted, but if we play it back just when it's soloed, you're going to hear a lot of low frequency buildup, lots of lack of clarity in the voice, and it's not going to sound too nice. So let's listen back to that.
I'm all alone, caught up in the winds of your cyclone, head over heels as the saying goes, but I'll come back to the ground if you say so.
Now let's record it with the pop filter in the right position, giving enough space between the vocalist and the microphone to avoid proximity effect and make it sound clearer and more crisp. So Sitara, if you want to put the pop filter back up about 3 inches away, and we'll do that take again when you're ready.
I'm all alone, caught up in the winds of your cyclone, head over heels as the saying goes, but I'll come back to the ground if you say so.
So obviously, huge difference there in terms of tone, in terms of amounts of high frequencies versus low frequencies. And if we compare them right against each other, the version that is in the correct setup with the pop filter in the right place and giving enough space for the vocalist definitely sounds a lot better. So here we go with what we just recorded. I'll play that back.
Alone, caught up in the winds of your cyclone, head over heels as the saying goes.
That's with the proximity
But
effect.
I'll come back to the ground if you say so.
And switching back into the better version, it's definitely clearer. All the words are coming through, and it's going to be a lot easier for us to mix this in later in the production. Now we're going to record Sitara singing through the verse and then into the chorus. After we get a good take, we might want to do what's called punch recording, which is going to allow us to play back a certain section and then punch in to start recording a new section. This is really helpful, especially if you have some really good takes that are generally working really nicely, but you just want to jump in and start recording in one particular section. So let's first have her sing everything through, and then we'll decide how we want to punch in some different parts for her. Here we go. This is from the verse.
I'm all alone, caught up in the winds of your cyclone, head over heels as the saying goes. But I'll come back to the ground if you say so. You're in my dreams, and when I awake I can feel you. There's nothing that I wouldn't do for you. I'd give the rest of my freedom just to have you. All I ever want is to be by your side, and I feel so lonely in bed at night thinking of you. You ain't my home, you're only where I reside, but I hold on hoping to be with you amplified.
Great, thank you. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the verse, but I think doing the entire verse and chorus together is a little bit much for the singer. So I'm going to play through the verse and then punch record her in at the chorus, so then we can preserve the verse that's already there and give a new chorus when she's rested and has a good breath to take beforehand. So the way that you do that is in Pro Tools at the top on the record button. If you right click it, you can choose what's called quick punch. And this works by playing back a track and then pressing record while it's playing back to punch into a certain spot to start recording something different. So as an example, I'm going to give her essentially a count in from her verse and then just press the record button right before the chorus comes in. This is also really useful if you need a vocalist just to record one word or one single part of a phrase. You can play back the rest of what the vocalist has already done and just punch in right at that moment when you need something new. So I'm going to play in from the verse and then punch her in at the chorus. You can either press record on your keyboard or you can just click the record button at the top where it says quick punch when you scroll over it. You'll notice that the record button also has a little P in it, which means it's in quick punch mode. All right, Sitara, I'm going to give you just the end of the verse and I want you to come into the chorus, okay?
Okay.
All right. So now I'm just going to play it back so she can hear what she did.
Do for you. I'd give the rest of my freedom just to have you. All I ever want is to be by your side, but I feel so lonely in bed at night thinking of you. You ain't my home, you're only where I reside, but I hold on hoping to be with you amplified.
Cool. Great. So with quick punch, you're recording over something that already exists. But what if you want to keep the take that was there and record a whole new take, and then take bits and pieces from each one to create the perfect overall take of the vocal? This function is called playlist, and it's something in Pro Tools that'll allow you to have multiple takes and then just pick and choose what you want from each one. The resulting take is called a comp. So here's how you do it. Next to the track name, you're going to see a little drop-down arrow. When I hover over it, it says Playlist Selector. If I right-click on that, I can choose New, which will give me a new take or a new playlist. You don't need to worry too much about the name because these are all going to be kept within the track itself. So I just click OK, and it looks like that take has disappeared entirely, but actually it's going to be held in all of our playlists under the track itself. So if I want Sitara to redo this chorus and still keep everything else, this is the way I do it. So Sitara, can we do the chorus again, please?
Yes. All I ever want is to be by your side, and I feel so lonely in bed at night thinking of you. You ain't my home, you're only where I reside, but I hold on hoping to be with you amplified.
Let's do it again a little bit lighter. Make sure you're breathing from the diaphragm, nice and supported. Okay. So if we want to do another take after that, I just go right back to that little arrow, right click, and new. Okay, because the name doesn't matter too much. Now we have another playlist or another take.
All I ever want is to be by your side, and I feel so lonely in bed at night thinking of you. You ain't my home, you're only where I reside, but I hold on hoping to be with you amplified.
Great, let's do the verse one more time.
I'm all alone, caught up in the winds of your cyclone. Head over heels as the saying goes, but I'll come back to the ground if you say so. You're in my dreams, and when I awake I can feel you. There's nothing that I wouldn't do for you. I'd give the rest of my freedom just to have you.
Great. Now we have all these playlists recorded, we can actually view all of them together and pick and choose what we like from each one for that comp track. So if you go down below the Record Enable button, you're going to see a little button that says Waveform, and when I hover over it, it says Track View Selector. If I click on that, I can actually choose to view my playlists instead of just one waveform. And when that happens, you can see all of my individual playlists drop down below the track. So as you can see, I've got my lead track here and then each individual playlist or take below it. In playlist view, I can actually solo and listen to each individual take as I go along and kind of choose what I want from each one. So this last take of the verse, I actually really liked it, so I'm going to leave that up here in the top track. But if I want to listen to the chorus from one of the other takes, I just solo one of the playlists and just play it back.
All I ever want is to be by your side, and I feel so lonely in bed at night thinking of you. You ain't my home, you're only where I reside, but I hold on.
I like this last one the best, and if I want to take that up into the main comp playlist, I just highlight it with my multi-tool. And then you're going to see on that playlist next to the solo button, there's a little arrow that points upward. I just click that and it jumps into the comp track. Now I have my last verse take with the chorus take that came before it. And if you want to be even more detailed, like individual words that you don't think are working too well, you can just solo the original take here.
All I ever want is to be by your side.
If I wanted to find side somewhere else, I can just play it back in each individual playlist and see if I like it in a different take.
By your side.
Like that side was a little bit shorter, and we can try it out. In slip mode, this works the best. If I just highlight the word side here, and I have it soloed so you can hear it,
Side.
I can actually just put that into the main playlist or my comp track by clicking the upward arrow and then hear how it sounds. If it doesn't sound perfect right away, we can adjust the boundaries so we can include a little bit more of that take with the take that's already up there just to make sure that it sounds right. So let's hear it.
All I ever want is to be by your side, and I feel
there's a little bit of a kind of cutoff in between each of those edits, so I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more. And with my multi-tool, I can scroll over each boundary of this take and then click and drag to extend my little, I guess, yellow take that's here over the purple one to make it a little bit more smooth, and then do the same thing over here. And all that's going to do is basically just make more room for that change that we made. And always, anytime you edit audio, go to the boundary at the bottom corners of each of those regions and click and drag left and right to create a crossfade. This will seamlessly go into each one so you don't hear any clicks or pops or anything like that.
Is to be by your side, and I feel so.
And we've basically just taken a word from a different take and it sounds like it's completely seamless. Once we have a good comp out of all of our takes, we can start doing layers over the vocal to kind of beef up the arrangement a little bit. I like to do this on the chorus, and it's really important to make sure that you record over what's already there. Don't just duplicate the track. All that's going to do is just make it louder, and it won't give it that thick, lush, kind of doubled chorusy effect. So what we're going to do is just have Sitara sing in unison over the chorus she already did, and try to match it as close as possible. This is again going to thicken it up, and then we're going to pan it out in the stereo spectrum, similar to what we did with the guitars, to give it a little bit more edge in the chorus. So Sitara, try to match your original vocal as close as possible. We're just going to layer it over same octave.
All I ever want is to be by your side, and I feel so lonely in bed at night thinking of you. You ain't my home, you're only where I reside, but I hold on, hoping to be with you amplified.
Right. Okay, now we're going to do one more layer on top of that.
All I ever want is to be by your side, and I feel so lonely in bed at night thinking of you. You ain't my home, you're only where I reside, but I hold on, hoping to be with you amplified.
Now I'm going to pan these a little bit through the stereo spectrum to make them sound wider and really fill up the arrangement. I'm going to leave my lead vocal in the center, and then each of the layers I'm going to pan hard left and hard right. When this goes into the mix together, it's really going to spread it out and just really just create this really nice, lush vocal sound. Here's what it sounds like soloed with the lead vocal down the middle and then the two layers panned left and right.
All I ever want is to be by your side, and I feel so lonely in bed at night thinking of you. You ain't my home, you're only where I reside, but I hold on, hoping to be with you amplified.
Really cool, really lush. And if your vocalist can do it, you can try having them sing it in a different octave as well and layer that over the lead vocal panned center. So Sitara, in just a second, I want you to do it up an octave. Really light, really airy.
All I ever want is to be by your side, and I feel so lonely in bed at night thinking of you. You ain't my home, you're only where I reside, but I hold on, hoping to be with you amplified.
So So together that sounds really cool. If we just bring that layer down really low in the mix, it just brightens it up a little bit. So here's how it sounds soloed with that extra octave.
All I ever want is to be by your side, and I feel so lonely in bed at night thinking of you. You ain't my home, you're only where I reside, but I hold on, hoping to be with you amplified.
Really cool effect. Now that we have the layers all finished, we can start adding some harmonies. And since we have so many layers in the chorus, we don't necessarily want to add harmonies throughout the entire chorus. Sometimes it works really well to chop them up and only have them on certain words. Makes it more interesting, and it doesn't sound like just one big wall of vocals all the time. We're also going to add some harmonies in the verse as well with a similar technique. Whenever I do harmonies, I like to do them in pairs like we did with the layers. That way I can pan them each a little bit left and right, and it will even them out in the stereo spectrum. So whatever we do for a harmony one time, we're going to go over it again and layer on top of it. So for the first harmony, I'm going to have Sitara just harmonize a few words in the chorus, and we'll go from there. Here we go, harmony on the chorus.
All I ever want is to be by your side, and I feel so lonely in bed at night thinking of you. You ain't my home, you're only where I reside, but I hold on, hoping to be with you amplified.
Great. Now we're going to layer on top of that.
Okay.
So once we get a good take, turn it down a little bit in the mix for the singer so they can hear themselves a little bit over the layer that we're doing. And here we go. We're going to do it one more time.
All I ever want is to be by your side, and I feel so lonely in bed at night thinking of you. You ain't my home, you're only where I reside, but I hold on, hoping to be with you amplified.
So if I pan these harmonies a little bit left and right, not far left and right, because that's what we have the layers that we already did pan. So we want to just take up as much of the space as we can left to right. And if we hear it all together, this is what it sounds like soloed.
I wanted to be by your side, and I feel so lonely in bed at night thinking of you.
Very cool, not too vocally, not too many harmonies, but just enough to kind of fill it up a little bit. So for the verse, the first thing that we're going to do is a little repeat on some of the words that she sings in the original verse, just to fill it up again.
Caught up in the winds of your cyclone, head over heels as the saying goes, but I'll come back to the ground if you say so. You're in my dreams, and when I awake I can feel there's nothing that I wouldn't.
All right, let's layer that again.
Okay. Caught up in the winds of your cyclone, head over heels as the saying goes, but I'll come back to the ground if you say so. You're in my dreams, and when I awake I can feel there's nothing that I.
And we're just going to do a little bit of a punch record to get her to do that harmony again on You're in My Dreams. Since we don't want to make too many tracks, we can just punch record this in and avoid having to make a whole bunch of new tracks and taking up CPU power. This is just an easy way to do it. So here we go, In My Dreams.
Okay. So, you're in my dreams.
And of course, we'll layer it again. Same thing, layered.
So,
Punch.
you're in my dreams.
Great.